Welcome friends, in this lesson we are going to learn about validations in jQuery. So we already created a simple form that is essentially contains three input or two input fields, one for the name and one for email address, and we saw that this type equals text and type equals email, especially type equals email helps us with validating whether the information is a valid email address. We don't have to write code for that, although we can, but why do more work? The other thing that we would like to see is at least that there is some information. There is some information in the text field, so there is some value for name, some value for email address, and for that we will write some jQuery code. So let's begin. As you know that we need a script here, and let me see, I copied this. Okay, so we need this is from the CDN from Google. We are loading the jQuery for so that we can include or write jQuery code in our HTML page. Now you probably know that this is jQuery min version, which means that this is a smaller file which doesn't contain any comments and extra stuff, so that the file is small. So that's good enough for now, and then we will write our actual script code here. So you probably remember we need to start with document.ready, and I like to build things slowly. So document.ready is a jQuery statement, and what we give as a parameter to document.ready is a function, and this function is the parameter. So function and then empty and a pair of braces, curly braces. Now all of our code should go inside this. So now we will write the code that will be executed when the document is ready. So what we want to do is we want to execute some jQuery code when the submit button is clicked. Now this is called client-side validation, because before we send all the information to the server for processing, which we will do later, we want to make sure that the information is at least looks valid enough. And because otherwise, if we send the information to server and realize that there is no name inputted by the user, then it's a waste of time for the user. So this it's nice to do client-side validation, although sometimes we also want to do server-side validations still, because if someone bypasses the client and tries to launch an attack or something, we want to make sure that our code doesn't fail on the server. So we will see that later, but for now we want to run our validations when the client or the user clicks on the submit button, and for that we need to get a handle of the submit button. So we will add an ID field for this, and we will just call it submit. So now you know that because in jQuery we use CSS type selections, so we will use hash submit, which means that when the submit button is clicked, now again I like to complete it this way. We have a function, and then the function is like this, and all the code that we want to execute when the submit is clicked goes inside here. Okay, now when the submit is clicked, the first thing we want to do is get the information that's in the text box corresponding to the name, and for that we have this input. We gave the ID name info so that we can access this input easily using the ID. So we will store that in a variable, which is easy. So let's create a variable. We'll call it name where, just to keep things separate. Now so we want to access the element which has the ID name info, so we will use hash name info and dot val. So that gives us the value that's in that text box. Now once we have the value, we want to make sure that the value is not empty. To test that, there are a couple of ways we can write. If name where is dot length is let's say greater than 0, then everything is fine. Or we can say if this is equal to 0, then we want to, let's say first we'll give an alert. Alert is not the best way to communicate with the user, but for now, to keep things simple, we'll just do alert, and name field is empty. And then let's say I'll leave it like this, or I'll just do else for now, although this is again, this is for testing. Name field has value. We'll add a few more things, but we want to test our code so far that if it's working or not. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for now. So okay, so I have basic form.html. I open that, and then you can see here we have the name field, and in the name field I'm going to, actually I'll just leave it blank and click submit, and it says name field is empty, so that looks like it's working. Now if I type something and then click submit, it does say name field has value, so it looks like everything is fine, and we are good to go. However, there is one problem. The one problem is if I put a couple of space or even just one space and then click submit, it says name field has value, although there is that's a white space, and we shouldn't be counting that as an actual valid name. So we want to get rid of that, so let's add code for that first. jQuery, we can do it using JavaScript, or because we are learning jQuery and focusing more on jQuery, we will use the jQuery function called trim, and it's $.trim, and then the name variable that actually is the string that is passed, that's the value in the text box, we pass it to trim, and trim will remove all the white spaces, all the spaces from beginning and at the end, and then we check the length of that string whether it's 0 or not. So now if there is a single space, we trim it, so now that will become an empty string, so the length will be 0. So now if I saved this file and go back, refresh the page, and now if I enter a space or a couple of spaces and click submit, so you can see it still says name field is empty. So that's one step ahead. Now that's good. If you notice one thing, that if I click test and click enter, it says name field has value, and the value goes to the form processor, whoever is processing the form. Actually we haven't added that yet, so we will do that later. I believe that will be good to keep all the form processing related things together. Now what we want to do is, next thing we will do is we will add validation for email. So I'll type code so that we can see some repetition is helpful. Email variable is equal to $, and now this time we want the field which has the ID email info, so we are going to add that, and okay, so we'll continue to so email address, we have the ID email info, so we will grab that email info dot val. Okay, so now that variable has the email information, and we will see if the email var is dot length is equal to 0, then we want to alert that the email field is empty, else alert email field has value. We'll do it a little better in a minute, but this is just basic beginning. And then we will add the code to trim this, so $.trim, and then this function is going to trim the email variable, whatever value, the string value it has, and returns a string, and we check the length of that particular value. So now I save this, and so refresh this and then I click submit. So it says name field is empty, and then it should also say email field is empty, because both of them are empty. If we fill one of them and then click submit, it should still say that name field has value, email field is empty. And then if we fill both, then it says name field has value, email field has value, but of course our email is not properly formatted, so we need to put that proper format, which is whatever. Okay, so name field has value and email field has value. Okay, so that looks good now. Now the next, that's it for now. Thank you.